All right, everyone. I have on Lindsay Stuart today, and she's a mama of three, an entrepreneur, and the founder of the postpartum apparel brand Mamalux. I actually looked up Mamalux. The gowns are amazing. I don't know how I hadn't heard of them before this because I feel like it's everything that you need in your postpartum experience. It's so hard to find comfy, cute things that are also leak proof. So I'll have you tell us all about that in a little bit, but she had this idea and totally went for it into something completely unknown. And I have like a gazillion questions for her about being a mom and starting a new venture and being an entrepreneur. So I'm really excited to have you on and to pick your brain today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I'd love for you just to tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you came up with the idea for Mamalux.
Sure. Yeah, so I am actually a journalist by training, and that's sort of like how I started my career as a sports journalist with the Washington Post and Sports Illustrated. So I always laugh just thinking about like what my 20-something self would think of my career now, basically, being about a mom and breastfeeding and all this stuff that was completely foreign to me, as I'm sure many of us feel when we look back on our younger selves. But anyway, when I was breastfeeding my son, who's now 4.5, I started leaking at night, as many women do, and just had no idea that was even a thing. No one had told me about it, which is funny because there's so much information out there and so many people give you all kinds of advice, but that just didn't come up for me. So it was a complete shock and it was horrifying because I was leaking through all of my clothes onto my sheets and just couldn't find anything comfortable to wear to deal with the problem. I hate bras so much. And I was I hate bras, period, but especially for sleep. So
Right.
realizing that the only way to stop breastfeeding, to stop leaking is to wear nursing pads inside of a bra was just insult to injury.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started researching and realizing that there was nothing out there that would allow you to leak milk, not leak milk and not have to wear a bra. And that sort of just sent me down the path of sketching out designs and thinking like, how can we fix this? How can women breastfeed and leak milk and not wear a bra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and a thing that a lot of people don't tell you too is wearing a bra 24 hours a day after having a baby isn't good either. That can cause mastitis and clogged ducts. It blocks your lymphatic system. So it's not good to wear a bra all the time. But if you're constantly leaking, it's like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. And I dealt with that a lot too. And as many of us do in the beginning with the clogged ducts and just, yeah, you kind of just have to let yourself breathe a little bit.
Oh, totally, totally. It's really weird because everyone I talked to did talk about leaking, but not like all the time. Um, but like putting like the pads on your registry and things like that. And I'm like a weird case. I never leaked ever.
Mm.
And I didn't know that that was a thing. Like, I think with my second in the beginning, there was like a few times, like when I'd hear her cry in the middle of the night, I'd start to leak a little bit, but not bad. And I found that super interesting. But I feel like the dress that you designed isn't just for leaking either. It's also like nursing convenient, comfortable, and cute. So I feel like you don't have to be a leaker in order to wear it.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Especially, I mean, I have my youngest is 8 months old and I don't leak all the time now. So sometimes I'll just wear it. It's a dress, and the pads can go in if you want to, they can also come out. So I wear it all the time with no pads. And yeah, I wanted to design something that was super just mom friendly, um, even more so than just breastfeeding friendly. So it's got the pockets and like the, soft material
Pockets.
that's, yeah. I
Pockets
know,
are like a
sure.
must. I feel like that's like, so we had to rearrange our house a little bit after having our kids because the layout of it doesn't make sense. So the master bedroom's on the main floor, the other bedrooms are upstairs. And we're like, okay, like once we transferred our oldest to the crib, I'm like, I'm not sleeping. She's still getting up to nurse throughout the night. I'm not going up and downstairs all night. No way. So we ended up moving our room upstairs. So we all share this like tiny bathroom. But like in the beginning of the day, when I bring everyone down the stairs, I'm always like, how come not every pair of workout pants or outfit has pockets? Like I need to put my phone in a pocket. I need to put like just the things I need to bring down for the day, you know? Like usually I just throw their outfits over the stairs. So they're at the bottom of the stairs when I get there, like to change them. And I'm like, everything should have pockets. That's like mom convenience 101 now.
I totally agree. I feel like even 2 pockets sometimes isn't enough for all of
Totally.
the things that you need to carry up and down stairs at any given moment.
I know. I've even been like, do I just like keep a backpack at the top of the stairs that I load up and just like bring down? I mean, I can run up and down, you know, it's not a big deal, but just like in the morning when you're trying to gather everything that I need to bring my water bottle back down. I need to bring, you know, it's just like your hands are full constantly. You need pockets.
Yes, pockets are mandatory.
Yes, absolutely. So I would love for you to tell us, because you didn't know anything about this world, and I didn't know that you came from a journalist background, which is super, super interesting. That was like one of the careers at one point. I'm like, ooh, that would be fun. Maybe I should do that. But I did that about like 20 different things. But I was like, ooh, journalism might be cool. That's super interesting. So you totally pivoted, went down a different route. So what was it like when you were starting out trying to figure out how to do this?
Well, I should say that in between journalism and this, I worked in marketing. And so I had kind of an idea of what it takes to bring a product to market and sort of like all of the little steps in between. Not that I definitely don't want to say I knew what I was doing, but I had a framework. I was the head of marketing for an umbrella company, but which is random. But it was a direct to consumer company. So a weatherman had an idea to create an umbrella, an amazing umbrella. And so he just started sketching and found someone who could kind of turn those sketches into something more technical, and then found a factory, which is sort of like the blueprint that I followed when I eventually decided to leave that company and do this. I just started sketching and then searched on upwork.com. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's just kind of like a freelancer marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Found a technical designer who could then translate my, just kind of preschooler sketches and make them something that a factory could then take and make a prototype out of. So it was definitely a learning experience, but I had an idea at least about what it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always get super fascinated by these stories because I feel like so many people have ideas and they have zero idea where to start or what to do. And that can really hold you back, like feeling like, ooh, I have this one thing that I want to make. And of course, there's always going to be reasons not to do it. But every single person that I've interviewed or talked to, it's like they just started like researching or came up with a preschool design and then had somebody else step in and help. And just really taking steps, like going for it isn't easy, but it's the only way. Like if you're not going to do it, then somebody else is going to invent it eventually anyways.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts, and you were talking about rebranding and how you felt like you had to sit down and plan everything out. And I relate to that so much because I probably could have started this business and this idea a year earlier than I did because I was stuck, like thinking I had to plan out every aspect of it and research everything. But the truth is, if you just start, then the momentum kind of carries you through that process. So
Mm-hmm.
just starting is the key.
Right. I know. I started talking about the rebrand 18 months before I actually did rebrand. So it was like, okay, Liz, just do it.
Yeah. But
It can
it's
be really
hard.
tough. Right. And that's like, so before we started recording, I was chatting with you a little bit that I'm like, I have to save all this for the podcast because I feel like so many people that I've talked to, or like so many moms in the similar season of life, Well, because we live in a different time right now, like especially COVID proved that about working from home, starting your own business, working for yourself, things like that. And it looks a lot different. Like when it comes to a job that I leave the house and I have to clock in, clock out, I've always been great at that. Like I was never late to work. Like in 10 years, I didn't call in sick once. Like
Wow.
I enjoyed going to work and I like showing up, doing my job, going home. When you're working for yourself, it's like, you there's no clock in, clock out. It's and then it's hard to create that schedule. At least it is for me. Like I was always a straight A student. I took some online classes in college. I got a D in one of the classes and I was like, this is crazy. And so the next semester I showed up to class, I got 100% in it. Like I'm like, I can't work online. Like I'm that person that like I have to sit in class and I absorb the information. I can take the test and I'm fine. If I'm trying to do it on my own, I'm drowning. So it's hard for me. It's really, really hard for me. Like I don't work well this way, but I have all of these like dreams and goals and things that I want to do for my business. And especially the doula side, like really wanting to help get resources and information out. And it's so hard with two kids who don't sleep.
Mhm.
Like trying to figure that out. So it's like, how did you do it? Like, how were you able to work from home?
Yeah, that is so hard. And I'm sitting here talking to you from my office because I needed to have a place away from all of that. But yeah, I mean, it is so hard to not feel the mom guilt when you're focused on your work at home around your kids. So that's number one, just leaving. And then I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I still struggle so much with this because I have two kids who are in preschool, so I have to take them to school. Then I have a few hours where I can work, and then I have to go pick them up. And then I come home, and thankfully, I have childcare. I have a supportive partner. So I'm super lucky, but I still feel like my day is so segmented by by doing things with my kids that I never feel like I can fully just check out and be business focused. In some ways it's made me more productive because I know I have like 3 hours. Okay, I have to get everything done in 3 hours. But then when you get in a good rhythm, you've got to go pick someone up from school or you've got to take someone to swim practice or. So I don't know. I mean, I think this business could have taken off so much sooner and everything could have gotten done quicker, probably if I didn't have kids, but then I also wouldn't have had the idea if I didn't have kids. So there you
Right. Right.
go.
Did you have childcare then when you were starting the business?
I did. We have
Yeah.
always had an au pair
Nice.
since my first was 3 months old, and I just love. I mean, it's so wonderful. It's not for everyone because you're bringing another person into your family, but for us, it's been incredible because I have basically like there's like three adults in my house who are all fully capable of handling the kids. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know how people do it without childcare.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question about the au pair thing. So my husband and I had like talked about that before. Is it since there is three adults in your house, like does it ever feel like then there's somebody else always there? Like it's never just you guys and you just get to be like you as a family and bond?
I was really worried about that. And I'm so always so worried about hurting people's feelings or kind of it felt weird to say up front, we don't want you around sometime, in a more delicate way. But it kind of just we found our own rhythm with that. We've had one au pair from Thailand and she was 23, and then our current au pair is from Colombia and she's 23, and neither of them want to hang out with us. Like we're like in our
True.
late 30s,
Right.
boring.
Maybe I think I'm just cooler than I am.
Yeah, it kind of worked itself out because they're like, no, we have friends, we have a social life, don't don't include us in your evening plans. So yes, it kind of just sorts itself out in that way.
Yeah, yeah, it's super interesting. Um, yeah, because it definitely can be really, really hard. Well, I think it's hard no matter what. Like every single person that I've talked to, like whether they've had childcare or not, they're struggling. Like I have a friend who's helping her partner start up a business and she's doing some other things and they have a full-time nanny. And she's like, I still do not have enough time in the day to get done what I need to get done. And then struggling with the mom guilt and like the split time. And it's so hard because even like, I think part of it too is like having access to like all the information that we do, it can be really great. Because like I said, my kids aren't sleeping right now. So I was reading something yesterday that was saying like, even if you take like 10-15 minutes of your day just to be completely present with your kid and be like, I would love to play a toy with you. I want to play a game with you, or let's snuggle and, do whatever you want for these 15 minutes. That can make it easier at bedtime that they're not like, well, I haven't had mom cuddles all day. Now I want to try to get it all in. And I'm like, that totally makes sense to do that. So I'm like, that's really great information that I'm going to take and try. Cause I can tell when I'm at home, it's like, oh, I got to upload this thing to Instagram. Oh, I need to edit this podcast. Oh, I got to prep dinner. And so it's like, yeah. And here and there. And you like play with them a little bit, but it's like your attention's completely divided constantly. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, taking that 10 and 15 minutes is really, really good. I think that's great advice that we should try to strive for anyways, just being present with our kids. But again, it's like we have all this information and it's so easy to compare. You see other people and it's like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes,
Yeah. And I'm trying to be easier on myself because sometimes I struggle with the guilt of like, well, why I shouldn't be complaining that this is so hard because I have everything, I have all the resources, I have help. But you're right. I mean, everyone's got their own struggles and, it's all relative. So yeah. And I completely relate to not being present. I'm trying so hard to put my phone down when my daughter says, Mommy, come sit with me. And I like that urge to check an email or respond to a customer, someone's like trying to exchange for a different size and I don't want to let them wait more than 15 minutes. It's always a struggle. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I remember, so on a flight that I had a long time ago, years ago, like on Southwest, they had like free reads in their app when you're flying or something. And I am not going to remember the name of the spoke or where it came from, so I'm sorry, but it was about time management, which is something that I've struggled with my entire life since I was born. And so she was saying it's like, especially the age that we live in, it's like we're constantly like checking our emails throughout the day and all this different stuff. And it's like people understand that you have a family. They understand that like you can clock out at 5. And if somebody emails you at 6 p.m., you cannot email them back till 7 a.m. tomorrow. And that actually almost makes you more productive, is being like, okay, at this time during the day, I'm doing emails, and at this time I'm doing emails. But other than that, I'm not checking them. At least like that's something that if I were to actually do it, I know would work for me, because I end up seeing emails. I'm like, oh, then I got to reply to them. And then I'm distracted because I'm not sitting down, looking at it, doing it. I'm like, oh, checking my email. And I'm like, oh yeah, this person emailed. And then like 3 months later, I email them back. So I'm like, if I just like set out that time where it's like, okay, 20 minutes, undivided attention in emails, then you're actually more productive versus people feeling like they have continuous access to you.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would never expect anyone else to respond instantly or question why they were taking a day to respond, but it's like the pressure I put on myself is so different. I don't know.
Right. We do put a lot of pressure on ourselves. So I'd love for you to touch on, because you were saying like, how your life now is completely different than in your 20s, and how motherhood has kind of shifted your frame of mind, like instead of feeling guilty or apologizing it for like having kids, like how has that changed in your working mindset?
Yeah, it has changed so much because when I had my son, who's 4.5 now, I worked for somebody else. And I remember calling up my boss and telling him I was pregnant and apologizing in that phone call. Just the business was new. I had just started a few months prior. We had just launched the business. And here I am telling him I need to I'm going to have a baby in a few months. And I was actually not even through my first trimester. That's how nervous I was. I wanted to tell him so early, just in case there was a problem. And he actually was like, listen, stop. Don't be sorry that you're having a baby. This is wonderful. Let's get you, let's get you a little maternity leave set up. And so that was nice, but it didn't really help my feeling of this is this is now like a problem. And I can't even, it's horrible to say that, but I kept thinking like, they're going to find someone else while I'm gone. They're going to, they're going to feel like I can't do my job because I am going to have a baby now. And so I took an 8-week maternity leave, which is pretty short. It's, I was really grateful for it, but I think when you look at other countries, there, I'm sure you've,
Yeah.
this topic is not a new one, but
Right.
I came back already feeling just kind of like I have to prove myself now. I have to show up. I was pumping. I couldn't the latching was difficult and like nursing was hard. So I'm pumping nonstop. So in calls, I'm pumping like on meetings. And just I felt so just I can't explain it. I don't want to say embarrassed, but just like I need to hide this part of me because I don't want anyone to question that I can still do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this was self-imposed. But then when I started Mamalux, I had already had my first 2 kids, and I just sort of said to myself, like, okay, first of all, this is a business that's about motherhood and it's for mothers. So I need to come at this with a different kind of strategy this time and really put motherhood at the forefront of what I do and embrace all of the difficult and the ugly and, just not kind of hide that aspect. So when I go out and talk to investors, sometimes I bring my son because I'm breastfeeding him. He's 8 months old, my third. And so I'll just say like, look, this is it. Like it's a package deal. Like I am a mom and it makes me, a little bit better at multitasking and more passionate about certain things. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think so many people listening can resonate with you saying that you apologize. Like when you told your boss, like, when I got pregnant with my first, I was employed as a birth doula at a hospital and I felt guilty telling them I'm pregnant. Even though I worked with like doulas and midwives and like they're so supportive, they were amazing. I'm like, I hadn't been working there super long and I'm like, I'm pregnant. Like I felt guilty. I felt guilty telling them. And it's just really weird how we feel that.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that there's like a way to not feel that way because you are taking time away from the job that you agreed to do. That's just a fact. Um
Right. But also like the population, like nobody would exist if we didn't have kids. So it's
totally.
like,
Yeah, totally. And yeah, it's just I don't know. I wish that it was just more, I mean, yeah, I wish it was more just supported, I guess, but
yeah, yeah. I think it's a huge culture thing because like you were saying, like other countries, it's not a big deal. Like you know that you have, because you have the maternity leave, you're guaranteed your job when you come back. It doesn't mean that you're like, oh man, I hope nobody has to pick up the slack while I'm gone or whatever, but it's so much more culturally accepted in other countries, versus here where it's like not, yeah, where there's just like a lot more issues with it. So I think that that's probably a part of it ingrained in us as well, that like you were even lucky to get 8 weeks off. Like even if that's your mindset, like I'm grateful
yeah.
I took 8 weeks, whereas like other places they'd be like 8 weeks, I took a year off.
Right, right. And no matter how long you take, you come back and there's just this burden on you to make that part of your life invisible because you weren't a mom when you started this job and you feel like I've got to just keep it status quo, even
Mm-hmm.
though that's impossible. Your life has changed in the biggest way.
Right, right, totally. So you're saying like you take your son with you to go find investors and stuff for your business. So how does that work? Do you just like, how do you find people to invest in your business?
Oh, well, that's a whole other it's hard. But I'm really lucky. I'm part of an incubator program that when I first had just the inkling of an idea, I pitched them and they said, yeah, we're going to help you start this business. Um, I shouldn't say that they didn't do that much, but they brought me in and they sort of, offered mentors and a little bit of seed money to get started. And so
Mhm.
they sort of helped me find investors and pitch the business. Also, just friends of mine, family members have seen the business kind of take off and are saying, like, oh, I might be interested in investing. Or I have a friend who does this for a living. So it's just like a very natural kind of progression of working your network, which
Mhm.
I hate. That's not my strong suit. I'm not like I feel like an opportunist sometimes,
Right, right.
but
Mhm.
it's also a necessary evil to growing a business is unfortunately raising money. So it's
Right,
something I'm
right.
trying to get better at, and it's my focus going into this year now that the business is established and people really love the products. So I feel like I can take the next step now and feel confident going in and actually asking people to put some money into it.
Right, right. Because you're like, hey, this people are loving this and they're buying
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so help me grow it.
Right. Win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is really hard pitching yourself and having that confidence. It's like, yeah, I can see how difficult that would be. And even people not understanding. I feel like having a supportive network. I feel like there's a lot of people in my life that still don't understand what I do, especially when I was like doing the doula stuff full time. Like I'm still taking on some births randomly here, but like when I was on call every single week, they didn't think I had a real job.
Oh my
Like
God.
that they're like, yeah, I mean, she's a doula, like I don't know what she does. But then like even after my birth with my daughter, I had a doula there and it was during COVID, so like nobody was allowed in. It was just me, my husband and my doula, and it was perfect. It was amazing. But my mom and his mom and my sisters were on Zoom, like watching it. And after watching it, my mother-in-law was like, that's what a doula does. She's like, oh my gosh, because she saw my doula like having me like basically do cartwheels around the room and like just with me the entire time and having me do different positions and like really serving me and my husband, making sure we were both okay. And she's like, I had no idea what you did. And I'm like, yeah. And she was there for 20 hours with me. Like there's births that I go to where I'm gone for 20 hours and
Wow.
it's a lot of work, but I love it. I'm passionate about it. But like people don't think it's a real job, So it's like hard when you're like trying to create things in your life and balance them, like even podcasting. Like, I don't know, like people being like, oh, like that's, they don't see it as a real job, that I'm really working towards something and it's hard to get support. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Well, that's also, I mean, I've had the struggle of pitching to investors who are men, some of them
Mm-hmm.
who don't have children, and they also don't really understand why you would need a dress with nursing pads built in. It doesn't register with them. So that's part of why I bring my son too. If I have to stop and breastfeed, for someone to realize how all-encompassing breastfeeding really is, or why a doula is so important, sometimes you got to just bring people in on the process a little bit and show
Right.
them like this is why this takes so long, or this is a necessary product.
Right, right. Yeah. I could just, yeah, I feel like pitching yourself would be so tough. But again, it's like part of that really pursuing something new. Like if you want something to work, you have to go for it. And that's, I mean, I've read like a gazillion self-help type books. And I mean, anything that you read, it's like, or any successful person that you see out there, like, I feel like the mentality of this younger generation coming up is like, they just want to graduate college and get like $150,000 job, like, right. And it's like, no, like you have to start at the bottom and work your way up. If you're starting something, you have to work at it. Like it's tough. Like nobody's going to hand you your dreams. Nobody's going to hand everything to you. And I don't remember the percentage, but it's like 90 some percent of people who have an idea and start to do it fail or drop out because it's work. It's a lot and you have to keep going. And failure is not, it's not a failure. It's a lesson. It's like, oh, okay, like I did this, it didn't work out. How can I tweak it? How can I go? Like failure's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah.
Unless you just like quit. Quitting can be a bad thing if it's like you're giving up on yourself or on other people. But like if you truly believe in something and you have a setback, that shouldn't be enough to like knock you completely down.
Yeah, and I that brings up a memory for me of in the beginning thinking like I shouldn't do this because I'm really scared of failing at it, and I don't want to get invest too much time and money in something and then abandon it. So one piece of advice I got from an entrepreneur that has really stuck with me is tell people, tell everyone what you're doing and what what you're hoping to achieve, and just bringing more people in who are kind of on your team and are rooting for you is really helpful. Because if someone asked me, "Oh, how's that idea going with the leak-proof sleepwear?" I didn't want to say, "Oh, I stopped because I just got scared." So it kind of motivated me to just, okay, let's keep going because all these people are rooting for me and know I'm trying to do this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. I feel like I've done that with some things in my life. Been like, hey, this is what, like even with the podcast, I'm like, this is what's happening this year because I got to get it done. Like I
Yeah,
have to
announce
do
it.
it.
Announce it to the universe.
Right. Then you're holding yourself accountable. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, for sure. I mean, anybody listening who, even if you're not starting out on your own thing, again, like it's hard. It's hard balancing it all as a mom. And whether you're working full time, part time, working from home, like none of it's easy. But it's also, I think, one thing that's like really helping me in where I'm at right now is that like this isn't a problem unique to me. Like there's days where I feel like I'm the only one struggling, or I'm the only one who has hopes and dreams and is doing nothing about them. And it's like, no, this problem is not unique to you. I'm not the only person whose kid is throwing a tantrum right now while the other one just had a blowout. Like this has happened a gazillion times throughout life. Like, so kind of like not letting myself throw a pity party and being like, okay, these problems are not unique to you. We're all going through it. And this is life. Life isn't cookie cutter and easy, but we can like make the most of it.
Yeah. And I don't know if I'm sure this exists in every city, but here in Pittsburgh, I'm in this amazing community on Facebook of moms. There's probably at least 1,000 of us in this group, and it's just that. It's every day people are saying like, "Oh my God, my kid like won't stop throwing his food like all over the place. Like, has anyone dealt with this?" And then 20 people will be like, "Yes, here's what I did to get him to stop throwing food," It's also how I felt like I could create Mamalux, because I started posting, "Hey, does anyone else feel like it's stupid that we have to sleep in a bra if you're breastfeeding?" And everyone was like, "Yes, oh my gosh, I hate it." So I think just finding those, finding your community of moms is really helpful with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love for you just to tell us like a tiny bit more about the product and then where people could find it at.
Yeah, sure. So Mamalux, our first product is the leak-proof lounge dress. It is basically a sleep solution for breastfeeding moms. If you're nursing and you're leaking milk, um, it has built-in removable nursing pads so that you don't need a bra. It's got bamboo fabric, super soft and safe for you and baby. Pockets, mandatory, as we discussed. And then it's just like really comfy and easy to nurse. And so you can find it at wearmamalux.com.
Awesome. I will include that in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and for sharing your journey with us, hopefully inspiring some people listening to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go for this thing that I've been wanting to do. Because I know I always need a kick in the butt to do that.
Yes, do it and then tell me so that I can help hold you accountable.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Lindsay.
Thank you.